Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of MSPT Coffee Talk. Today, with me, we have the world top 2% scientist for the year 2019. He is a pharmacist and an experienced professor with a demonstrated history of working in the hospital, community, as well as professor in pharmaceutics. Please help me to welcome Professor Muhammad Khairul Iqbal, Muhammad Amin. Welcome, Prof.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Prof.
You're
So, Prof,
welcome. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
an
the
honor to
scholar,
be here.
yes.
It is an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks to be here with us. And so, as you know, the scholarly publishing has gone through a radical transformation due to the emergence of the internet. And predatory publishing is a threat in science, and no database is currently immune on it. Okay, so Prof, I know you have a vast experience in both national and international editorial boards, such as drug delivery and translational research, locally for our Malaysian Journal of Pharmacy as well as Malaysian Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences. Maybe Prof, could you bring us a little bit back to the origin of how can we actually define predatory publishing or even predatory journals?
But you are very straightforward. Terus start and asking me that question. I thought we will have some chit chat first. Very straight to the point.
Yeah. Do you have your coffee with you?
Oh yes, I have my coffee with me.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sam, for your question. Hi, everybody. Thank you to be with us today. I'm very happy to join this coffee talk session under MSPT. Good question from Sam about these predatory journals. I think a lot of people has already talked about predatory journals, publications in particular. If I can draw your attention, there's one article actually published in Nature that was in 2019, sorry. And the title of this article is Predatory Journals, No Definition, No Defense. So that was the title of the article. And it's written by like 32 authors, and the corresponding authors is Agnes, David, and Kelly. This is a very interesting article. You can find this in Nature. It's an open access, yeah, open access. Okay, and
Yeah.
they come out with a very good definition. This is, I would say, like so-called official definition. So you know what they say? They define predatory journals as predatory journals and publishers are entities that prioritize self-interest at the
Mm.
expense of scholarship and characterized by false or misleading information, deviation from best editorial and publication practices, a lack of transparency, and or the use of aggressive and indiscriminate solicitation practices. Well, I think that is a very wholesome, holistic definition, telling you what predatory is all about. It is a very bad intention. If you clearly understand how they define it, it comes with a very bad intention. You know, to subsidize people, get money out of it, and of course, it lacks of transparency. So basically, these are the, I would say, as characteristics of predatory journals. So that is, if you can say that is probably the official definition lah, under Nature. But I must be very clear with all of you. It is very difficult for us to pinpoint which journals are predatory. It's very difficult, but we can recognize them. We can recognize them with those characteristics. Imagine if one day, one good morning, you open up your email. Suddenly, there's a lot of emails coming in asking you to publish in this particular journal that you never heard of. Probably the publishers, the address somewhere in the United States or in UK. But if you look at it in details, it's probably in India, based in India, for example. So I have no intention to say anything about India, but just
Yeah.
to give some experience that probably many of us have already experienced. Okay, and they will promise you I would say that you will have a rapid review, rapid publications, probably in the within 1 week or so, with some kind of fees that you have to pay, and that is definitely predatory. That's my quick answer. I hope so. Sam,
Yeah, yeah.
over to you.
Yeah, I've just gone through like a lot of definition on predatory as well. Perhaps I missed this one, which is the prioritize of self-interest, which is really make the predatory really predatory. Because otherwise, I sometimes I start to doubt. How about local journals? Are we in a bad situation of being listed, or are we soon to be listed? Things like that. Because at some point of time, we thought that our peer review, whether or not, how are we going to define our peer review is good in process or not good in process. So those are the things that running in my mind when I was preparing for these sessions. So second, let us look at the recent publication besides the one that Prof has just mentioned. The recent publication talk about the rank of Malaysian as top 5 in predatory publishing. And this has called into the question of research quality and credibility of our global university ranking. And even last year, the widely used academic data Scopus has actually discontinued more than 500 potentially predatory journals, which some of these are still indexed in Web of Science. And this has contributed to more than 36,000 document from Malaysian authors. And what do you think are the driving force, Prof, for ones to fall into predatory publishing, like the small author like us? What are those factors, and how do we rectify this? To be very frank, in the very beginning of my career, I am quite ignorant about the existence of predatory.
Okay, thank you again, Sam. Yes, you are right. Scopus Elsevier is right also saying that there are a number of journals, thousands of journals already in database, but they keep updating the database from time to time, then remove some of these journals when eventually they found that these journals or did not meet some criteria, but they never say that it's predatory. I think you know why is the reasons. You can get sued because of that, without any strong evidence. Okay,
Yeah.
they remove it because they didn't meet the quality criteria that they have set from time to time. Okay, some of us or many of us probably when we started the culture of publishing our work, I put it that way. We started our culture of publishing because like 20, 30 years ago in our public universities in particular, publication is not really mandatory. Teaching is the most important KPI for many of our academicians. But only like last 10, 15 years, when the government realized that it is important to make Malaysia as a higher educational hub, and then we invested a lot of money for having what we call as research university. So we make it mandatory. One of the important criteria as being an academician is to publish. That was really a shock for many of our, academicians, uh, elderly academicians, and also for the young. But we slowly build our momentum. We are being forced to publish our work, and it is part of our promotion. Many of us, or many of the universities, has already put the strong criteria for publications. So, like it or not, it's being forced initially, and slowly become a culture. Once being forced, we look for journals to publish, um, it, it, because of the pressure given by the government, by the university, by your peers. Indeed, okay, you have no choice. You will seek any other whatever journals that can easily accept your papers. I must say that like 10 years ago, or our public universities in particular, our research universities, we put quantities strong emphasis on quantities rather than qualities. Not saying that we are ignorant about qualities. What I'm trying to say is that we put more marks or criteria, strong marks, high marks for having more numbers of publications. For example, if I can give you an example, for a young lecturer, uh, se- uh, senior lecturer to go to associate professor, you probably requires like 10 papers minimum to get promoted to associate professor. But many universities, they don't really care whether you publish in high impact journal Q1 Q2 or just any ordinary kind of journals, as long as these are publications, peer reviewed journals. Okay, so I think my personal opinion, because of that pressure, people tend to publish anywhere as long as it's a peer reviewed uh, journal. Even at some time, we don't really care about the Scopus database. We don't really care about ISI. Even the criteria is very simple. The publications, the papers must be in peer reviewed journals. As simple as that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so to get those paper published, you can publish anywhere. And there comes, I think, the started of the growth of what we call predatory journals. That was like in 2010. That was the time, the year when people started to talk about predatory journals. Yes, you are right. Pressure uh, about KPIs, the pleasure to publish, and of course, because we don't really care about the quality, we care more about the quantity for the sake of promotion, to get promoted to associate professor, to get promoted to professor grade B, grade C, grade A, and so on. So we probably ignore about the quality, and the adverse effect of that. We are pharmacists. The adverse effect of that is is that we suffer from this being called as among the countries that publish a lot in predatory, so-called predatory journals. That's my take.
Yeah, yeah. Even an article published in 2015, when they look into the demographic of author who fall into this predatory, um, there is a quote saying that the young scholar tends to feel the stress, and they are the person, and from, especially from developing country, young scholar from developing country are the majority who actually fall into this. So as an intermediate young like me, Prof, do you have any advice, how am I going to respond to this? And the thing is, I'm also in the middle of applying my associate professor. I thought that having more number, of course, it looks better from the first glance, right? And we have a several filter to get into promotions. So yeah, there is a tendency. Yes, we are fall into this, and whether or not we are aware, or we are the known victim or unknown victim. What do you have? Do you have any insight on this, Prof?
Okay, thank you, Sam, again for the question. I didn't answer whole of your questions just now, but I can answer it now with your new
Yeah,
question, more or less.
yeah.
How do we prevent this from happening again? Okay, my first uh, suggestion is that uh, many of us has already got the culture to publish, which is very fantastic. This is what actually we want every academicians, every researchers in Malaysia to do. Okay, we have to publish. We have been given millions of grants as a whole, 100 millions of ringgit being given to Malaysian public universities and private universities to do research. It's a lot of money. It's time for us to publish. Now we have come to a stage where we need to publish quality in quality journals, in quality. So public numbers of publication is no longer important. This is my personal opinion. We must go for quality publications. So quantity is no longer important. Maybe like 10 years ago, you can probably it is normal actually to see some professors, some senior lecturers publish like what 10 papers a year, but in lousy journals. I must say very explicitly here. 10,
Yeah.
15 journals, some probably 20 journals, but in lousy journals, in paid journals. Some
Yeah.
of them probably predatory journals. It's true, and please do not deny this. We have to admit and accept this as a fact. But I think the time has come for us to go to quality journals. So what do we understand by quality journals? Okay,
Yeah.
let me give a very quick overview. What I actually mean by quality journals.
Okay.
We are in pharmaceutics, in pharmaceutical technology. In every field of research, there are what we call as, I would call it as core journals, core journals, where everybody competing to publish in these journals, and the rejection rate in these kind of journals are very, very high, very, very high.
Yes.
The acceptance probably like 5%. 95% will get rejected. So, and most of these journals are in Q1 journals. They can be high impact factor. They can be like 9, 7 impact factor journals. Probably some are 4, 5, but they are still very difficult to publish in there. I can tell you in pharmaceutics or in pharmacy as a whole, if you go to journal citation reports, you can see a category of field of research where there's one category called pharmacy and pharmacology. This is where all
Yeah.
pharmacy related journals are in there. There are 271 journals in there, journal titles in there. Okay. In pharmaceutics, I'm not sure about in clinical pharmacy or in chemistry or in some other areas, pharmacy practice and so on. But we talk about pharmaceutics. Okay, the top journals that I would like to publish will be in Journal of Control Release. Impact factor like 7 or 9, something like that. JCR, Journal of Control Release. There are a number of journals that we should publish in this kind of journals. First, I can name you a few, which I would call as the hardcore journals. Journal of Control Release, International Journal of Pharmaceutics, uh, Drug Development and Industrial Pharmacy, uh, um, Molecular Pharmaceutics. Molecular Pharmaceutics is ACS,
Mhm.
IJP, JCR is Elsevier, Journal of Control Release is Elsevier. Then what else? The most recent journal, which we also use of tend to publish, is the drug delivery and translational research. So these are a number of journals that we will always like to publish there. But of course, it's very difficult to publish in these journals. You can try JCR. I can tell you, if your research is not up to the par, low novelty, scope is very small, you may not have any chance to publish in these journals. Similarly, in IGP, they always put novelty as the most important criteria to publish in these journals. When we talk about novelty, we're talking about new knowledge that we are coming out with from our research. So they're looking at that. And it is very specific. This one is very specific. Journal of Control Release is talking about pharmaceutics research, about control release in particular. If you go to IJP, it's all about pharmaceutics. You cannot publish something non-related to pharmaceutics. That's the reason why it's very difficult to penetrate. But there are some other journals which are more broad-based. Not in the pharmacy at all, not in the pharmacy field. I can give you one example. Is carbohydrate polymers.
Yep.
Carbohydrate polymers is also from Elsevier. The impact factor is very high now. It's probably like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Okay, used to be like 2, 3, like 3, 4 years ago, but now it's like 5 or 6. Why carbohydrate polymers has high impact factor? Because they have a very broad readership. A lot of topics can be published in there as long as it's related to carbohydrate. It can be in drug delivery, it can be in, I say, food technology, it can be something related to textile, for example, if it involves some starch, some gelatin or something like that. Anything that related to uh, to carbohydrate with some kind of novelty, you can publish in there, including drug delivery. But but carbohydrate polymers is not in our field. It's not really in the journals that we want. We can publish, but not really where our peers, okay, in in developed countries that will actually read these journals. So to get out of what we call as predatory journals, we should aim to publish in our hardcore journals. And I'm sure you know what your hardcore journals are. That's my take.
Yes, I think we are quite sure what is our core journal, but there is a culture called publish or perish, and they are researcher when they have done something, either publish or perish, right? And to be frank, I have a lot of things still staying in my office without publishing, because I think it is not up to the standard. But in the culture of publish and perish, we want to put it out somewhere if the hardcore do not want us. So we thought of like somewhere else. Is that something that we actually have misconception as an early researcher? And what advice do you have, and how do we visualize this? Or maybe we have some misperception that we are being asked to achieve as a researcher.
Okay, Sam. I must admit that even during my early career years as a lecturer, submit in some journals that are not really what I call hardcore journals.
Yeah.
But we publish in reviewed peer-reviewed journals, which we know they are not predatory.
Yeah.
That's the very important thing. You can publish in uh, all peer-reviewed journals as long as they are not predatory. I know it's very difficult to publish in hardcore journals, but to
Yeah.
get yourself into tune, to build the culture, yes, it's always advisable to uh, encourage young lecturers to publish in any journals that they can penetrate as long as they are not predatory. So how do we know they are not predatory? Of course,
Yeah.
as we said that they are not asking for fees, for yeah, well, some open access asking for fees, but asking for fees for quick, rapid publications without no proper review process. And once they publish online, you can see a lot of editorial mistakes and so on. So definitely, yeah, there's something is not right with these journals. So don't go into that. So it is about ethics and integrity. So being an academician is very important to have high integrity and follow these ethics, not to publish in this kind of journals. So it is okay to publish the non-hardcore journals, just to get yourself the momentum to publish, to increase your self-esteem. Because I know some of us, or many of us actually, once they got paper rejected, so down, so depressed, they don't really want to look at the paper anymore, which is always
Yeah.
something that we commonly heard of.
Yes.
But we cannot continue doing that. We cannot continue doing that. So start publishing slowly in as long as it's not predatory journals. But once you're already in a high gear, okay, in the high gear, now you must tune your mindset and publish in hardcore journals, because these are where your peers will look at you, look at your
Well,
CV and so on. Yeah.
sure. Thanks, Prof. That's a really very very useful comment. That means we need a lot of patience in publish the things that we have now, and we have to sort of like waiting for the recognition to be there. Yes, I always think of like send to the hardcore journal, and when they reject us, what I can do is still searching for any local journals that is going to accept us in this case. And in the Malaysian culture, Prof, just yesterday, a young CEO was featured in Age that expressed that Malaysian often have the habit of putting down our own products, right? And with our diverse culture, actually, we are very good position to do something which make world-class reputations. Fortunately, I have checked the bill list. None of the Malaysian journal is being categorized as predatory. Okay, and while most of us are still encouraging to publish in all those index journal, Web of Science, Scopus, do you think the encouragement to published in those index journal will actually somehow marginalize local journals. And since Prof, you has made us very proud when you were selected as this Deputy Director General of Higher Education. And while Malaysian Citation Center are sitting under you that time, what do you think that they can help the local journal in growing nationally or even internationally later on?
Okay, thank you, Sam, for this. Yes, first you are right. Malaysian journals are not in the Bill's list or Cabal's list. That shows we are very,
Yeah.
truthful with high integrity editors,
Yes.
in Malaysia. That's something positive that we can be very proud of. One thing.
Yeah.
Secondly, the issue with our Malaysian journals is that why we have difficulties to maintain well, there are some journals we can maintain the publications, but for the new entry, the difficulties to get the number of uh, papers to get published and to publish it regularly, probably every quarter, probably every month, if not maybe twice a year. But many journals in our local journals will have difficulties because they have difficulties to get submissions from our own academicians. Okay, that is something that we have to accept. But of course, publications in journals, it takes time. For one journal to mature, it takes time. You cannot do it overnight. You cannot do it overnight. It takes a lot of patience. But now, while many public universities, in particular research universities, um, we are only so-called encouraged to publish in journals which are indexed in ISI or in Scopus,
Yeah.
where of course our local journals, many of them are not listed. Some some probably listed, but eventually due to um, probably difficulties to maintain the publication over a period of time, they will not being asked to leave the Scopus, the database anymore. So that's the challenge. Um, Go back to your question is that we have to. It is important to put a criteria. If I were given a chance to
Mhm.
do this again,
Mhm.
every university should actually put a criteria for promotion, or if not promotion, probably for annual assessment, to have at least one paper published in our local journal. This is actually true for UKM, I can tell you. For UKM, because we have a number of local journals in UKM, in particular Science Malaysiana. Previously, now Science Malaysiana is already in Scopus, in ISI. I think it's a quarter Q4, so Q4, and also it is under the category of multidisciplinary kind of journals. Used to be quarter four. I'm not sure now, but at least the quarter four. Effect factor last time less than one, about 0.7, 0.8. I'm not sure now, but what is good about UKM to ensure the survival of Malaysian Science Malaysiana is to encourage, um, actually not encourage, to make it mandatory to um, every academicians, every lecturer in UKM, if they want to get promoted, they must have at least one article published in local journals, in Science Malaysiana or in any UKM journals, and also to write one in Malay language. In Malay language. So,
Oh,
so
that
it's,
would
it's
be
a
very good.
mandatory. Yes, yes. So if you have one paper, say you have 10 papers for 10 publications, you are eligible for promotion. So maybe your peer, your colleague also have 10 papers, but because you have one paper published in Science Malaysiana, you have higher credit, higher merit to get promoted. And if you have one paper in Bahasa Melayu, Bahasa Malaysia, then
Mhm.
you are at the age to get promoted because of that. So it's a mandatory for UCAM. So I believe that we can do the same to all our public universities or even universities in Malaysia, is to put one criteria at least for every researcher to publish in local journals. This is in order to support our local journals. So that's why I'm saying how can we assist our local journals in particular to be more sustainable and get into a world recognition over a period of time.
Sure. I think kudos to UKM really. That is really something really I have never heard of, and I thought this. Yeah, I think if I meet my VC, I will suggest to him. Is a very good, because this is ensuring the survival of local journal, as well as if the one that publishing in Bahasa, right, in Malay, is
Yeah.
also a very good initiative. I think that will keep up with our local language. Yes. Thanks, Prof, for this really good advice. So, a recent publication by, not really recent, 2015, by Sen and George, stated that paid journal, they have the market of 75 billion USD. Okay, and we know one of these criteria for being categorized into predatory, they are paid journals, article processing fee. And of course, this does not necessarily mean all the paid journal is predatory. Okay, like for example, MDPI was previously listed in their list but removed in 2015 because it has been proven to be with a strong peer review process. And based on the same study, okay, they say that the article processing fee for predatory journal is usually lower than those with credible open access paid journals. So some of us even has speculation on any paid journal because of this. Okay, I would like to ask Prof insight on this matter. Maybe you could enlighten us on how we should visualize the paid journal.
Okay. Yes. Thank you again for this question. A few years ago, like 5 years ago, one of my colleague from New Zealand, he
Mm-hmm.
he has a very strong what you call it, against open access, saying that open access poor quality journals, they are not supposed to be there. People, it's a paid journal, so anybody can submit your manuscript and accepted because they are paid. Okay. But if you look at another angle, even the non-open access is still a paid journal, but not paid by you, paid your universities, paid by your government actually. So there's
Yeah,
paid journals as well, in a way. But of course, it's not open access. But to get uh, access to the journal, your university, your library has to subscribe it. So only then you can access to these journals. Okay, so what I'm trying to highlight here is that whether it is paid or non-paid, whether it's
yeah,
non-paid as a non-access, open access or non-open access, is not the sole criteria of the journals being labeled as predatory. So have to
yeah,
be very clear about that. I
yeah,
think I gave example before in my previous talk. Even Nature, if you want to publish in Nature, you have to pay what 10, 15,000 US dollar, and it's not cheap,
yeah,
cheap.
yeah,
And but nobody called them predatory, isn't it? No, nobody call it predatory. And being a reviewer of these journals, none of us getting paid for being a
yeah,
reviewer.
correct.
Okay, yeah. So again, paid journals or open access journals, they are not the criteria as being labeled predatory. One. Secondly, yes, a lot of people, a lot of my friends asking me, publishers like MDPI, like Frontiers, like previously Hindawi, previously Bentham. These are newcomers in open access publishers, and they charge quite good sum of money as well to us, to
Yeah,
the authors. Whether do we call them predatory? Okay, so this is a very tricky question in a way. But I will stick to the criteria which I believe if for a paper or manuscript to get published, it must go through a very thorough, strict, stringent review process. That's a very important criteria first. Secondly, once it's published, whether it is open access or not open access, the publisher has the responsibility to ensure that the published paper are all in good order, in good order. There's no typo error, there's no grammatical error, and they are published in such a very fantastic publications that build confidence for every reader to read it. Okay, so
Mhm.
secondly, and thirdly, if you look at the editorial um, of the members of the journals, those are the people who are in that particular area. Those are the professors, the experts in that particular area. And some of them you probably met in international conference that you probably know them, and they are those who are being invited to be in the editorial board. It is not any Tom, Dick, and Harry that they can pick to become the editorial board. So if these journals comprises of these editors, you know, follows the processes like this, and I believe, and I'm sure MDPI, Frontiers,
Yeah.
Hindawi, Bentham, they follow this very strictly, very
Yeah.
religiously. And why do we call them predatory? I don't think so. I disagree on that. They probably newcomers in terms of publishers, unlike Elsevier, unlike ACS and so on, but they are not predatory unless they have the bad intention. They are not transparent. They make it a rapid publication. You submit today, tomorrow get published. So then they are predatory. Otherwise, they are not.
Yeah, and I found
Yeah.
some of these Frontier and those journals that need a high payment. Some of them they publish along with reviewer comment, which they indicate the transparency of the journal itself. So, Prof, we have some question from the social media. So we have Prof Peh, asking what is wrong to be called as predatory journals, and all journals do not have impact factor under ISI. Is that predatory? And a predatory journal are journal without impact factor and not in ISIs. This is what Prof. Pear would like to clarify, maybe.
Yeah. Hi, Prof. Hi, brother. How are you, brother? Okay. Thank you, Prof, for your question. I would like to answer the first line of your question. Why is wrong to be called predatory? It is wrong. They are predatory. They take our money, our pocket, our money from our pocket, from our government's coffer. Okay, it's a public's money. We pay for it, but yet the knowledge that being accepted to be published is not at par. It's not the standard that is supposed to be published. And why it becomes predatory? Because usually the data submitted are half-baked data. They are not reproducible. They did not contribute to any new knowledge. They did not generate new knowledge, and it is nothing, just a piece of scrap paper that you have to pay for it. That is predatory because you can send anything. I think you probably have read in Nature or in some science journals where they send one article, one manuscript to what they call predatory journal, and you just type rubbish in it, and those rubbish get published, and you
Yeah.
have to pay for it. And the money that you pay comes if your own pocket money or you comes from the government's money, and it's very unfair, and you cannot do that. So that's yes, it's very wrong to publish in predatory journal.
And is all predatory journal do not have impact factor? I think some have, right? Some have impact
Um,
factors.
I don't want to
Comment
call
much.
them predatory. Yeah, for those who have somehow managed to squeeze into the database like Scopus or ISI, they probably eventually get some impact factor. but then they're being removed. Whether they're being
Yeah.
removed because they are predatory, I have no comment on that. But what I
Yeah.
can say, they didn't meet the criteria of being a quality journal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And we have this Dr. Awis Sabri who would like to ask, Salam Prof, most of the university put a pressure on lecturer to publish in Q1 and Q2, okay, which might be one of the factor that pushing the lecturer to submit their articles in predatory journals. Should that pressure been abolished and maybe just put a requirement to publish in any index journal regardless the impact factor? What do you think, Prof?
Thank you. I wish from UIA. I think
Yes,
of us
Awis
know
from
him.
UIA.
Yeah. Thank you, Awis. You are right saying that many of our universities now put pressure to publish in Q1, Q2. But actually, it's not really Q1, Q2. It's more on quality journals. But it happens that the quality journals to be in Q1 and Q2. But Q3, Q4 is also a quality journals. It's just the standard of the journal is very high. Usually, if I can share with you, say you want to publish in JCR, Journal of Citation Reports, Journal of Control Release, or International Pharmaceutics, or even the European journals of biopharmaceutics and pharmacy and biopharmaceutics, the design of experiment, the papers that you send has to be it has to be a complete paper. From the characteristics of materials that you conducted your studies up to the extent of animal studies if possible. So it's one full paper, a complete paper from scratch up to the animal studies. Usually that is where these journals would like to accept. If you write a paper and cut your experimental work into various segments, okay, one is the one paper is on the characteristics, on the criteria, on the on the properties of the materials. Another paper probably on some physical chemical studies or whatever, and the third paper is probably on animal studies alone, for example. So you can get three papers. I used to do it, I must
Yeah.
admit, I'm sorry. Yeah. No way you can publish in these big journals. No way. Yeah, no way you can publish as a what they call as salami. What they call it? Salami
Yeah, salami,
papers.
salami,
Salami papers. What do you call it? Yeah. So it's
yeah,
big. Like you slice your salami, and
yeah.
then you send to small journals. So
Mm.
that actually no, the difficulties if you want to publish in Q1 or Q2, they won't accept that. They want a complete studies from scratch from the beginning until the end. So basically, like having if you receive a grant, so the whole project of your grant in one paper, and that is publishable in Q1 or Q2. If you would just split your papers into various segments, no way you can publish it. So it is indeed a pressure. You may think that no way you can penetrate into the so-called hardcore journals. Of course,
Yeah,
yeah. But as I said earlier, being young lecturers is not wrong for you to publish in small journals in Q3, Q4. It's okay just to get the momentum, just to build your self-esteem. But once you reach the level, being an associate professor, now going to professor, but yet again you still publish in unknown journals, in non-index journals. Oh, that is not acceptable. That is not
yeah,
acceptable. We cannot have this kind of professors in our country. You don't want to do that again. It's not acceptable. And unless you're writing, books, writing books, textbooks, publishers with Elsevier, that is okay. That's not journal, but it's the books. You can write your opinion, in newspapers. Oh, that is fine. No issue with that. Probably you write an article in Wall Street Journal. It's not Q1, but it's a Wall Street Journal. Okay, so
yeah,
so that is something that we are looking for from our professors in Malaysia.
yeah. Then there's a Mr. Tan who asked, do predatory journal appear in Q1 and Q2, which I believe Prof would not like to comment much as long as they get into the database, right? So
Yeah.
let me proceed to another question, which is from Mr. Ahmad. Can you comment on recent articles published on infiltration of predatory journal into Scopus? I'm aware some of the paid journal that are listed in JCR or Scopus, but very dubious in terms of their practices. Some with more than 450 paper published per month.
Okay, this is exactly what the two Czechs wrote in the article recently that caused an uproar, where saying that Malaysia is already in the fifth countries that used to publish in the predatory, so-called predatory journals. But
Yeah,
we must admit that the study was conducted in 2015 to 2017. So
2017. Yeah,
during that time, well, we still at the learning curve. I mean, many of us still publish in any kind of journals, but things have changed tremendously after that.
yeah,
From 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, I think we have changed a lot, and I strongly believe that the number of papers published in so-called predatory journals are probably the most minimum at this stage. Um,
yeah,
but again, I would like to quote what um, Professor Datuk Wahab, he's a Deputy Vice Chancellor Research in UKM, who said that people talk about predatory journals, but people do not want to talk about uh, paper published by our researchers in high impact factor journals, in top 1% journals, in Nature, in Science. Why we do not want to give credit to these our researchers, our professors who have published in these journals, but yet we look at those, the negative aspect of this predatory, but in fact it's very small nowadays. I can tell it's very now small nowadays because one of those criteria in Myra, we have already make it so difficult, and we don't really count any kind of papers simply publish and get into Myra. No, we don't allow that anymore. So the trend has changed. I would like to challenge our viewers today. If you could conduct a study, okay, look at publication or paper published by our researchers, Malaysian researchers, from say 2019 and 2020, 2 years ago until 2020, I can tell you that you will find hardly uh, journals or at least a reduction of articles published in so-called predatory. Please, if you have a chance, please do that. Conduct some studies and look at our publications, our researchers' publications. Yeah.
yeah, sure. So, audience, this is the challenge to you. Any one of you who are interested to work on this challenge, looking into Malay 2019, 2020 articles, whether we have any reductions. But anyway, Prof, I have attended a Scopus seminar when they talk about these predatory journals from the Malaysian authors, and you are really, really right that the predatory publishing has been reduced from 18% from 2017 and now less than 10%. And even something to share around the research university, we are less than 5%. So, but try to make it 0% as much as we can. Right. So
Yeah.
let me go into another question from Dr. Sabaria. If we publish in a predatory journal in the past, what should we do? Should we withdraw the paper and try to publish in another non-predatory journal? This is a very good question because I need to look into my previous publication and match with the dear list. Yeah. What was your comment on this, Prof?
No, you don't need to do anything. Just admit that it happens that the paper was published in so-called predatory. You already paid the paper, okay, the article. In my opinion, you don't need to withdraw it because it's already out there. It's already open access.
Yeah.
If you believe in the knowledge generated from your manuscript, from your paper, it's got published. Okay, people get benefits from your paper. Then why should you withdraw it? Okay, it just happened that
Yeah.
the journals that benefit from your paper is predatory. It happens to be that. Yeah, but let's bygone be bygone.
Yeah.
Um, But if you think the papers is something can contribute to the nation, to the people of the world, why do you want to withdraw it? So you don't have to
Yeah,
do it. Yeah.
such a wise advice, Prof. So, from Dr. Sarahuddin, what are your insight on some of the university that require academician to target a certain value of impact factor per year? Example, per year 5 impact factor.
Okay, I think this is
Is
ridiculous. Yeah, the one reason because people, some universities they just want to get high score for their Myra.
yeah,
Again, I'm sorry to say this, even though I used to work in ministry, but that was not our intention when we build our Myra assessment. It's not the intention for us that universities has to set this kind of criteria, set the target, 5 impact factor, 5 publication, 8 publication professors, 3 publications for senior lecturers. You are killing, or you are killing the culture of publishing actually. Uh, as I said earlier, we used to go for quantity. We used to go for quantity. But I think now it is time to seriously work for quality. We must nurture the same uh, culture to our young lecturers to focus on quality publications,
con-
not no longer numbers, no longer numbers. Of course, sometimes to get promoted, it may take some time. But say if you have like
yeah,
2 or 3 papers throughout your 5 year career, say you had like 3 or 4 papers throughout your 5 year career, but those papers are published, in a very high impact factor journals, in your hardcore journals, in JCR, in Nature, in you know, in what all those kind of journals that we wish we can publish, then so be it. And you should get promoted because you did very well, so excellent compared to some people who have published like 20 papers, but in journals that people have never heard of, and yet you give them promotion. So that is very
yeah,
unfair. I would say that's very
yeah,
unfair. That is not only unfair, it is wrong to do that. It is wrong.
yeah.
It brings this what you call it, disrepute to our
Mm.
reputation as being a higher education hub in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And Prof,
my take on that.
yeah, thanks, Prof. One last question before we are coming to an end. So this Dr. Izati is a bail list and predatory journal.com are trustworthy and a foolproof list to check whether a journal is predatory. Are there any other tips or lists that we can refer to actually?
Okay. The question is whether they are trustworthy or foolproof list. I can tell you there's nothing such a perfect list. One.
Yeah.
Secondly, I was asked previously by some commentators who are asking whether ministry will come up with our own blacklist or whitelist journals. My answer was no, no, we're not
Mm.
going to do that. For many reasons. One, as I said, one, it's not our job in administry to tell you what journals to be published, where to publish. You should know your journals, your area of research, your expertise, your hardcore journals that I used to mention earlier. So you should know. It's not our job to come up with the list. One. Secondly, if you simply pinpoint, journals, publishers are as predatory, you are open yourself, for court action. People can sue you without any strong evidence. If you are ready to defend yourself in the court, then yeah, so be it. But I don't think we should do that. But what I always uh, reiterate whenever I give a talk on this is that look at the criteria. As in the first questions where Sam asked me earlier, we look at the criteria of the journals. If the journals, meet the so-called the definition that we used to understand, uh, with no integrity journal, lack of transparency, fast publications, rapid publications, no real reviewers, and just publish anything. The editorial boards are just any Tom, Dick, and Harry. Then those are the criteria of a predatory journal. So if you ask the list, I would say there's no perfect list, and it is your duty to find what is the journal that you should go and publish.
Yes, thanks, Prof. So means we should know where to publish because we know our area, right? And we have to read the criteria, recognize editorial board and any promising statement as an author. So the advice are really enlightened, and we are going through the process of deciding where to publish. I think this is really very important. Thanks, Prof, for such an enlightenment session to our MSPT audience. And guys, trust me, this session will be the one that you are going to replay later on. And please spread the session to your colleague, to your student, and even to your friend, and make sure you guys check it afterwards. And let us make the best science starting from sharing in legitimate publishing. Thank you, Prof. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. Support
Thank
MSPT.
you. Sorry?
Support